So sometimes your construction of English is highly influenced by the context and environment you're in. So somebody from a West Coast city like Los Angeles will speak vastly different than somebody from an East Coast city like New York. These constructions of English grammar are known as the vernaculars, and they differ between state to state, country to country, and region to region. And most importantly, they differ between community to community. But sometimes when you're writing your paragraphs, your memos, or your essays, and you're using Grammarly or Microsoft Word, these word processing units will mark you wrong for writing in a vernacular. Does this mean that your vernacular is wrong? Not necessarily. The goal of this video is to encourage you to just get your idea out, whether it be in vernacular or non-vernacular, and recognize how to adapt your own grammatical changes into a recognized form of grammar that'll help your writing in the future. So according to Bloom and Huddleston in Cambridge's textbook, A Student Introduction to English Grammar, there's two forms of English. There's standard and there's non-standard. Standard English is considered to have a uniform and stable grammar that's used around the world. This is a form of English grammar whose construction of clauses, phrases, and tenses will be recognized and used around the world. You can see how standard English works when you take the written English form in Africa and ask somebody who's in Asia to compare the English. Usually they're able to understand and break down the grammatical forms. Non-standard English are the changes in English that are unique to your environment and your context. They're unique to who you are, and it may take a lifetime to adapt. Somebody isn't just able to go into a non-standard English speaking environment and be able to pick up these vernaculars. Somebody from Northern England or Ireland will have a different way to speak than somebody from the rest of the world. A good example is they will say, "I miss me family," instead of saying, "I miss my family." But when you type out "I miss me family" onto the word processing unit like Microsoft Word, they'll double underline "me" blue. Does this mean it's wrong? Or does this mean somebody is making a mistake when they write? Not at all. So just because you speak a certain way doesn't mean you should let the word processing unit, or anything for that matter, affect you from delivering your idea effectively. So in this video, we're going to focus on some grammatical changes that occur in non-standard phrases. Once we recognize these changes, we're going to practice adapting them into a standard form. So when constructing your sentence, it is important to remember that your sentence resembles a structure of a syntax tree. This tree contains constituents that are your phrases and clauses. Every tree requires a header that works as the main focal point or the main idea of the entire sentence. What? To put simply, the main idea or the main message of your sentence can always be referred to the phrase that is in charge. In non-standard English and in some American vernaculars, it's perfectly acceptable to adjust the structure of the sentence to fit the main focus or the main subject that you're trying to emphasize. This is done in order to quickly get to the point. So we're going to focus on 3 grammar adjustments that's commonly found in African American vernaculars. So the first one we're going to look at is the absence or the removal of the copula. And the copula is just an auxiliary verb that connects a subject to its complement. And these are verbs like is, be, or are, etc. And we're going to be looking at some of J. Cole's lyrics from his song 1985. So the second one is an adjustment of the present perfect progression or the present perfect continuous. This is to emphasize the subject continuously progressing. And the third one is the use of ain't and double negatives. So J. Cole's track 1985 from his 2018 album KOD contains a conversation between an older rapper versus a new generation. This track contains a lot of lyrics that skips over the use of the copula and has an absence of the be verb, to be verb, are verb. And it's a good example to look at. So from this track, let's take a look at some lyrics. So J. Cole says, "People acting woke, but they broke. I respect the struggle, but you all frontin' these days. Man, they're barely old enough to drive." So go ahead and pause the video and see which parts of these lyrics where J. Cole skips over the be verb or the auxiliary verb. So one good part is when J. Cole says, "I respect the struggle, but you all frontin' these days." In this part, J. Cole skips over the are verb and "you all are frontin' these days." This is for him to get straight to the point to say some people are putting on a front or putting on a mask to portray themselves as something they're not. So in here, the removal of the copula is meant to make J. Cole's lyrics much more exact and much more powerful. So remember, sometimes it's okay to skip over the copula in order to get to the point or emphasize the main idea of your phrase. So here's 3 more lyrics from J. Cole's song, and see if you can take the time to spot out where J. Cole skips over the copula. So here's a fun fact. Some languages, it's even completely acceptable to not even use a copula. It's already understood in the language. For example, if I wanted to say you're poor in Arabic, I would say ente faqir. So this literally breaks down to say you poor. But in Arabic, it's already understood when you put ente and faqir, you poor together, it means you are poor. So some languages already completely abandon the use of the copula. It's already understood within the context. So the second grammatical adjustment is adjustments to the present perfect progressive. The present perfect progressive is meant to indicate a continuous action that occurs after it happens. Usually you would say something like they have been married, but when you grammatically adjust it, or you put it into a non-standard form, you remove have, has, or been. So can you identify the adjustment in this statement? There's no argument needed. LeBron James been good. The statement that LeBron James been good is not emphasizing a past tense. I'm stating that LeBron James is good and he's going to continue to be good for a long time. So the removal of has, have, or has is completely acceptable in this context. If I give you this sentence, are you able to spot the grammatical adjustment? What I'm trying to say is that politics been a nuisance. So the third grammatical adjustment is the use of ain't and double negatives. So if I give you this statement, she ain't said nothing to nobody, what's being emphasized here? So as we know, ain't is used in replacement for did not, has not, or is not. So when I say she ain't said nothing to nobody, I'm emphasizing the innocence of she. I'm stating the fact that she did not definitely say anything to anybody. So let's say you're writing a sentence or writing a paragraph and you can't help but to use a vernacular in order to get your idea out. It's okay, perfectly okay to write it down. And here's some techniques and here's some tips to help practice reverse that. A good technique is to go ahead and write in your vernacular or write in a non-standard form and reverse it back into the standard form. So an example of a non-standard form, if I were to say, in my own opinion, Arab food been the best, I would have to reverse it back and say, Arab food has been the best. I just insert the has where it's appropriate place to be. Another example is that I love all reggae music, but Polynesian be the best. If I reverse it back, I need to say Polynesian music is the best. So another really effective way to practice this is to write in the standard form and then reverse it back into your vernacular to make it make sense to you. So if I said, I haven't told anybody anything, I would reverse it back and say, I ain't said nothing to nobody. So to recap, all forms of grammatical English follows a header or a main idea that is structured throughout the whole sentence. Standard English is a recognized form or structure of English that can be understood from Africa to Asia to Australia to America, whereas non-standard English is specific to you, your community, your environment, and it takes time to learn how to speak this. Just because you speak in a vernacular, you speak in a slang, doesn't mean your ideas aren't acceptable. Sometimes it's perfectly acceptable to make grammatical adjustments to quickly get to the point. So when a word processor like Grammarly or Microsoft Word marks you wrong for writing in a vernacular, just go ahead, ignore it. And in fact, sometimes it's okay to turn off autocorrect and just write your ideas out. Then take the time to go back and figure out how can I adjust this into an acceptable form or an understood form that anybody can understand. So that's it, guys. I hope you learned a little bit. Just remember to keep working hard, focus on your writing, and don't let anything affect your main idea. And last but not least, just remember that Papa John's loves you. And if you don't like Papa John's, remember that I love you. All right, peace.